Hello and welcome to our daily show, The Big Story, where we bring you the hottest topics of the day right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Rachel, coming to you live from the Straits Times. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, so make sure to like, comment and share with your friends. Also click the bell button on YouTube to be alerted whenever we are live. I'll be joined by my newsroom colleagues today to talk about the topics that got you talking today. On today's big story, we have updates on the current situation in Hong Kong. Yesterday, nearly 2 million people took to the streets of Hong Kong to demand the withdrawal of a bill that will allow the city to send criminal suspects to mainland China. On June 15, the Hong Kong administration announced that the bill will be suspended in response to massive protests that took place over 2 weekends. The protesters that took to the streets yesterday also called for Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam to step down. I have East Asia editor Goh Sui Noi in the studio with me today to discuss what is next after the bill was suspended. Welcome to the show, Sui Noi.
Thank you.
So, Sui Noi, we know that the extradition bill was suspended on June 15. And how was the response from the protesters on the ground? Were they surprised? And is this considered as a victory to them?
You could say that the suspension of the bill by Mrs. Lam came as a bit of a surprise to the protesters, principally because even after the 1 million people march on Sunday, June 7th, Mrs. Lam was pretty adamant about carrying on with the bill without delay. And even on Wednesday, when there were violent clashes between the police and protesters, she still insisted that it would go on. Yes, and so organizers on Thursday and Friday were still calling for the people to go out to protest yesterday and also to go on strike on Monday. But what happened on Wednesday, the violent clashes between the police and protesters, actually got some of the supporters of the bill wavering a bit about whether it should be carried on. This is because they are worried that there might be further violence. So they came out to suggest to Mrs. Lam that perhaps it should be delayed. And so on Friday evening, there were rumors circulating actually that she would withdraw the bill. But of course, in the event, we knew that she didn't withdraw the bill. She just said that she would suspend it. Yeah. And yes, this is a victory for the protesters, but they have not got what they want actually. This is not a full victory because they wanted the withdrawal of the bill. What they got was just a suspension. And so we saw them going out into the streets again yesterday. And the fact that about 2 million people turned out just shows how much they wanted this bill to be withdrawn, principally because they feel that it would erode their civil rights and freedoms, and that Hong Kong's one country, two systems framework in which the city has a high degree of autonomy will also be eroded.
And you said that they got the leaders shaking, right? Just yesterday, Miss Carrie Lam herself came out to apologize. Is her apology enough? And we know that protesters went on the streets demanding for her to resign. Would she resign, and why are they demanding it?
Right. Okay, as we can see, her apology really to the people is not enough, because today they are still out in the streets demanding withdrawal of the bill and calling for her resignation. Right. So why are they asking for her to resign? To her, she should take responsibility for introducing a bill which is so divisive and which threatens their civil rights and freedoms. Yeah. And they're also unhappy that she has still refused to withdraw the bill. Right? It is still on the table. And there are some who also think that what has happened, all these protests and everything, has basically damaged her authority, and so her government is not going to be very effective. So they think that it would be better for her to step down.
And moving forward, do you think Miss Carrie Lam herself, trying to maybe regain the people's trust, eventually do you think she will withdraw the bill?
Well, actually the bill is pretty much dead in the water. So today, Bernard Chen, who is the top advisor to Mrs. Lam, he gave an interview on TV in which he said that the bill was technically over and that the next chief executive would not dare to table the bill again due to its great controversies. Yeah, but he also said that the government will not withdraw the bill because it wants discussions about the pros and cons of this piece of legislation to continue. I think this kind of set the government and the people up for more confrontation. As to whether she would withdraw the bill, I think it very much depends on how far the people are going to pressure her and push her into doing so.
And we see this is an example of the power of the people in Hong Kong, which is quite amazing. Yeah, thank you, Soinoi, for sharing your insights on this matter. For more updates on the Hong Kong protest, do log on to straitstimes.com. On to our next segment. Just yesterday, dads all over the world celebrated Father's Day. This includes Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat, who was part of the Father's Day celebration organised by the Centre for Fathering, Dads for Life and MediaCorp. During the ceremony, Mr. Heng shared a new initiative by the Ministry of Manpower to create better work-life harmony for parents. Manpower Minister Josephine Teo will organise dialogues with citizens to get their input on the matter. With me in the studio today is political correspondent Lynette Lai, who will share what all this means for Singaporeans. So Lynette, we've heard of work-life balance but never work-life harmony. So what is Mr. Heng suggesting when he said work-life harmony?
Well, I don't think there's really a significant difference between the two in terms of the meaning, but perhaps when you change the wording, you use harmony instead of balance. So when you think of balance, you think of a scale, right? It's 50-50. Whereas when you're talking about work-life harmony, it seems like the emphasis is more on finding out, what works for each individual. I think perhaps that's what they're getting at.
Okay, and what is the government trying to do in terms of, rolling out this new initiative?
Well, so it's there are no details announced yet, but basically what Mr. Heng said is that he is, or rather that Manpower Minister Josephine Teo will be launching the Citizens Panel on Work-Life Harmony, and the intention is to get Singaporeans' ideas on what they hope to see for their own lives.
And why do you think the government decided to roll out this initiative out of a sudden? I mean, we have seen data from the Ministry of Manpower about how Singaporeans work about 45 hours per week, which is about 9 hours a day, and this is even more than people in Japan and South Korea, which they have this culture of working late and working overtime.
Well, I wouldn't say it's really out of the blue, because it's been going on for a few years now, trying to find flexible work arrangements, trying to help people find the best way to get that harmony in their lives. But if you want to look at the triggers, maybe it's one of the things is that it's aging population, of course, and the second thing, of course, is the total fertility rate. Last year it was 1.14, which is the lowest in recorded history, and so you can see that although it's not an immediate crisis, but clearly the situation is quite urgent. And if you have work-life flexibility, you have parents who are maybe able to pick up their kids from school and then go home and continue working, and that might make people feel a bit more confident about having kids, because they know that their work won't be compromised, they won't be penalized for it.
Okay, so it has something to do with increasing the fertility
That's
rate
right.
in Singapore. Okay, and for you, how important is work-life balance or work-life harmony?
Oh, I mean, of course, it's very important. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? And I think even surveys show that when you have employers who support work-life harmony, your employees tend to be more loyal to you. So it's not a bad thing if you want to keep a good employee, to offer them that flexibility.
So what does work-life harmony look like to you?
Well, I guess it depends really on where you come from. If you are are a young parent, you have children, then that might be you leave work early, you go to the preschool to pick up your kids, you bring them home, you settle them to bed, have dinner, everything, and then you continue your work again. But if you're, say, someone middle-aged, you have aging parents to take care of, then that might be you having the time off to take them to medical appointments, to give the helper a day off, and you can be there.
Okay, and you know that we know this government is trying to encourage dialogues to talk about better policies for work-life balance. If you could participate in the dialogue, what kind of suggestions would you put forward?
Well, I think a lot of really good suggestions have been put forward already, especially the flexible work arrangements. I think right now it's about fine-tuning it and maybe helping people to see that it's not just putting the policy in place, but you've got to change mindsets. Because when you give people that flexibility, I feel that employees tend to feel like I'm not just a cog in the corporate machine. My employer recognizes that I'm a person with other needs. They trust me to do my work even when I'm out of the office. And that mindset shift is something that's very important.
Okay, and this is one of the times when we see the government trying to engage citizens in their policy making. Is this something where we see a new style of leadership in Singapore?
I think this kind of consultation has been going on for very long, at the grassroots level, and then you have our Singapore conversation a few years back. But I think the signal that Mr. Heng is trying to send here is that this is really going to be a priority for his government, his generation of leaders going forward.
Thank you, Lynette, for sharing your insights on this matter. For more news and videos, do log on to straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Rachel. Join us again same time tomorrow for more news on The Big Story.